Continuing our look back at the Rocky series leading up to the release of Creed 2, today we're looking at Rocky 3. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2 yet, you can check them out with this link in the corner. The third Rocky film, once again written and directed by Sylvester Stallone, marks a turning point for the franchise in several different ways. Rocky 3 is very much a movie of the 1980s. It's a lot campier than the first two, which were both fairly serious in tone and grounded in reality. Now though, everything's supercharged. Rocky bought a nice house in the last movie, but now he's got a huge mansion that he drives around in a golf cart. Did you think all those kids chasing Rocky in the previous training montage was a bit silly? Well, check out these slow-mo shots of his thighs. Apollo sure was an over-the-top antagonist in Rocky 2, wasn't he?
Last 5 minutes in the ring with a superior athlete like me.
Nah, he's got nothing on the absolute maniac Clubber Lang, played fantastically by Mr. T in his film debut.
Nobody can stop me! You tell Balboa that!
Rocky himself has also undergone a big change in this movie. He's far more articulate now than he used to be. Rocky was always depicted before as a good-natured but simple-minded guy, barely literate and a terrible public speaker.
In the morning, I splash it on, and it makes me smell mainly.
Rocky's a lot more sophisticated in this film. He has a much wider range of vocabulary, and he no longer talks in the same sort of drawl that he used to. I think this is because the line between Rocky Balboa, the character, and Sylvester Stallone, the person, was becoming even more blurred in Rocky 3 than it had been before. Following the unexpected success of Rocky 2 at a time in Hollywood when sequels were not considered safe bets, Sylvester Stallone had become a household name by 1982, and so too did Rocky become an even more larger-than-life personality in his own world. There's a montage at the beginning of the movie where you see clips of Rocky's rise to celebrity status, and a few of these, including appearances on The Muppets and the Academy Awards, were just footage of Stallone himself attending those events in real life. This is the only film in the series to focus on Rocky's boxing career as the primary source of conflict. There are 2 fights instead of 1 this time around. 3 if you count the goofy charity match against a pro wrestler named Thunderlips near the beginning of the film, played by Hulk Hogan.
The ultimate male versus the ultimate meatball.
Despite the film being far more over-the-top and cheesy than its predecessors, Rocky 3 is still able to tell a compelling dramatic story. After learning that all of his title defense fights since beating Apollo were against hand-picked fighters, Rocky's legacy is called into question and he takes a serious hit to his self-confidence. He then makes the same mistake Apollo made all the way back in the original movie by not taking his training regimen seriously for the upcoming fight against Clubber Lang. Finally, the double whammy of his mentor Mickey's unexpected death on the same night that he loses the title to Lang shatters Rocky's resolve entirely. It's then, at his absolute lowest point, that Rocky is visited by an unexpected ally.
Apollo?
Apollo takes Rocky under his wing, training his former rival to retake the title from Clubber Lang. A big aspect of this training sees Apollo attempt to rekindle Rocky's drive to succeed, referred to by the former champ as the Eye of the Tiger.
You had that eye of the tiger, man, the edge. And now you gotta get it back. And the way to get it back is to go back to the beginning. You know what I mean?
It's sort of implied in the first 2 movies that it was mostly Rocky's raw talent, hard work, and a nigh inhuman level of physical endurance that led him to do so well against Apollo, who had always been the better boxer on a technical level.
You fight great, but I'm a great fighter.
Now, with Apollo taking Rocky back to basics and having him essentially relearn the sport from scratch, regaining his motivation, Rocky becomes a far more skilled boxer than ever. Apollo's own motivation for helping Rocky is simple. He tells the Italian stallion repeatedly throughout the movie that when this is all over, Rocky's gonna owe him a big favor. Rocky 3 continues to develop and evolve the relationship between Rocky and Apollo, taking it in new directions. Completely, 100% platonic directions.
Oh, you're looking good, Stallion.
Alright, so Apollo already had a bit of an obsession with Rocky in the last film,
And you can call me Collect. Call me Balboa.
but in this one, his man crush has reached new heights and even seems to be reciprocated by Rocky to a certain extent. You could cut the sexual tension between these two with a knife. No wonder Adrian is so mad at Rocky.
You got me curious.
You got me curious, Rock.
In all seriousness though, the rivalry-turned friendship between Rocky and Apollo is absolutely the highlight of the movie and has retroactively become one of the main focal points of the entire franchise, carried all the way through from the original film up to the latest installment. The two become best friends over the course of their training regimen in this film, and Apollo even gives Rocky his star-spangled shorts to wear in the rematch against Clubber Lang.
You just make sure you wash them before you bring them back, alright?
Rocky's character arc in this movie is far stronger than it was last time around, with his lack of willpower power communicated more effectively and resolved more satisfyingly than in Rocky II. Apollo's arc is a bit simpler, though it's worked much more cohesively into the story this time, since now his development is tied directly to the main narrative with Rocky rather than simply being the B-plot. While it's these two characters who get the majority of the focus, Mickey also gets a lot more development here than he did in the previous film. You really get a great sense of the bond that he and Rocky share, both as mentor and pupil as well as a surrogate family. Mickey's death scene is also one of the saddest moments in a film series chock full of highly emotional story beats. Adrian, played once again by Talia Shire, is also much more effective here than last time. Now, rather than inadvertently hindering Rocky's efforts to train, it's her who finally breaks her husband out of his funk late in the film by calling him out on his crap and helping him work through it. The only member of the main cast who suffers in Rocky III is Paulie, who the movie doesn't seem to have much of an idea what to do with. Rocky's opponent this time around, Clubber Lang, doesn't have much time devoted to his character outside of montages, where you get a pretty good sense of his determination. What he lacks in development, though, he more than makes up for in personality. Lang is an absolute lunatic. The movie does a great job at making him intimidating and making you really want to see Rocky kick his ass, which eventually, of course, he does. This film launched Mr. T's career and was the first of several performances in which he spoke what would later become his catchphrase, "I pity the fool."
No, I don't hate Balboa, but I pity the fool.
The final scene of the movie sees Rocky paying back the favor he owes Apollo. What is this favor? Why, a boxing match, of course, but this one off the books. No crowd, no announcer, no coaches or cutmen. Just the two of them, alone, oiled up in a basement somewhere.
Want to ring the bell?
All right. Ding, ding.
The film closes on a freeze-frame painting of the two boxers thrusting out at one another. Rocky III is once again scored by Bill Conti, and the soundtrack is once again amazing, though this film in particular stands out for its use of the song Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, which is arguably just as iconic to the Rocky series as Gonna Fly Now, despite only appearing in this film. The anthem of Rocky III was originally going to be You're the Best Around by Joe Esposito, with that song having been written specifically for this film, hence the references to history repeating itself and the final bell. While the song was ultimately passed over in favor of Eye of the Tiger, it would be used 2 years later in The Karate Kid, a movie which itself draws heavy inspiration from the Rocky series. I'm not surprised they ended up going with Eye of the Tiger though. Sylvester Stallone seems to have a bit of a thing for tigers. In Rocky II, he spends a large portion of the movie wearing a jacket with a tiger on the back, and the scene where Rocky proposes to Adrian takes place at the zoo in front of a tiger. Additionally, Stallone owns a boxing company in real life called Tiger Eye Productions. Rocky III is one of my favorite entries in one of my favorite film franchises. It manages to significantly up the entertainment factor while barely sacrificing any of the dramatic depth, as well as continuing to develop the characters further. This was originally intended to be the final movie in what would have been a trilogy.
Oh yeah, this is definitely the last one.
But of course, that didn't happen. Next up, the series reaches maximum cheese as East meets West in Rocky IV. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, help me out by hitting the like button, subscribing for more content like this in the future, and commenting down below letting me know your thoughts on Rocky III. I've got lots of other videos up on my channel you can check out if you like this. Thanks once again very much for watching, and take care.
And you can call me collect. Call me, Balboa.